The Australian Medical Association has accused the Prime Minister of throwing a grenade into the vaccine rollout. It comes amid outrage from Queensland, which remains bitterly opposed to those under 40 receiving the AstraZeneca vaccine.
From a virtual meeting to open hostility, Queensland accuses the Prime Minister of putting young lives at risk after he publicly consented to those under 40 receiving the AstraZeneca vaccine.
I don't want an 18-year-old in Queensland dying from a clotting illness who, if they got COVID, probably wouldn't die.
The state's Premier questioning how and where the decision was made.
There has been no National Cabinet decision about providing AstraZeneca to the under 40s.
A position backed up by Victoria and Western Australia.
I think this is an unfortunate reflection of the rushed conversation that the Prime Minister kicked off late on Monday night without talking to anyone.
Clearly, we get different advice, I suppose, or have a different approach to the Commonwealth.
The federal government returning serve against the Sunshine State.
Queenslanders can see these claims for exactly what they are. They don't stack up, they are a smokescreen, and quite frankly, the Premier needs to get on with managing the state.
The Commonwealth insists it is following the existing advice of federal health officials.
ATAGI advice has always contemplated that where an individual had informed consent, they may elect to do so.
Australia's Chief Medical Association unimpressed, claiming the constant changes are causing confusion.
And unfortunately, the Prime Minister's thrown a little bit of a hand grenade into our vaccine program. And I think that today shows why we need to keep the politicians out of health discussions.
New South Wales wants to speed up the vaccine rollout. It won't stand in the way of younger Australians receiving the AstraZeneca vaccine, connected to rare cases of blood clotting, but makes the point it's recommended for older Australians.
The New South Wales Government always follows the health advice, and the health advice from the federal regulatory bodies is that those over 60 should be getting AstraZeneca.
While experts maintain the risk is minimal and has been reduced, COVID chaos continues to grow. Jonathan Lee, Sky News, Canberra.
Doctors are advising young Australians to wait for the Pfizer vaccine despite the changed advice from the Prime Minister. GPs say unless those under the age of 30 are at a high risk of contracting COVID, they shouldn't be rushing out to have AstraZeneca.
This queue moving almost as slowly as the nation's vaccine rollout.
I'm actually waiting for my wife, and she's waiting at least 1.5 hours now.
How long have you been waiting for?
About 40 minutes.
People here are divided on which vaccine they feel comfortable receiving.
What are your thoughts around AstraZeneca?
I would have had it if I didn't have access to Pfizer.
It's good if people just want to get a vaccine, but obviously the Pfizer's the better option.
I'm happy to get the Pfizer.
I'd prefer the Pfizer.
How do you feel about AstraZeneca?
I don't have a problem with it.
The AMA and Royal College of General Practitioners were not consulted when the Prime Minister told the nation those under the age of 40 can have the AstraZeneca vaccine if they choose to and are assessed by a doctor. It was welcome news to those desperately waiting for a vaccine. ATAGI's advice has not changed. AstraZeneca is not recommended for those under the age of 60.
I do welcome the program being opened up to people and having conversations, but would not be recommending people actively seeking it out at this point in time, because I think we've still got time to wait for Pfizer, which is better for that age group.
GPs have been inundated with calls from young Australians waiting to be assessed for AstraZeneca, sparking confusion between practitioners.
We're getting one set of guidelines from the experts, and then the government is sort of putting out another message which is sort of confusing about how to interpret it and sort of takes us a little bit off track.
As the risk of contracting the virus in the community increases, so should the urgency around protection. Some doctors say they would be comfortable offering AstraZeneca to young people in high-risk settings if they understand the risks.
And you would say to me, yes, look, I'm willing to take the risk because of my high-risk occupation, and I'm willing to take the risk because of the levels of infection are increasing in Sydney, and it's going to happen here again, and I'm worried. I'd much rather be vaccinated now, 2 doses, so please can you vaccinate me? with your consent, then I would do it.
Despite the confusion, thousands of people are turning out here to Sydney Olympic Park to roll up their sleeves. It's a much-needed effort. Australia remains last in line of developed countries to vaccinate its population. Gabriella Power, Sky News, Sydney.